Hey, welcome to Midweek Conversations. I'm Dennis,
And I'm Angelica.
and we're here just to kind of reflect on what we did this past weekend and what's happening, what's new in the life of River Hills Church.
Mhm.
So, Angelica, hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
We're both filming on location today.
Yes.
I am in Plainfield, Illinois, and you can kind of see we're at a park where there's a family gathering, and kids are out there playing wiffle ball right now. We got a few people from the family gathered in the background there. Hey, Kevin, wave! Yeah, see, there's Kevin waving. And our niece lives here. She has a hairstyling salon, but her apartment is only a one-bedroom apartment, so you can't fit 20 people in there. So we're out here. We drove down here, Angelica, in the pouring rain. It was awful for
I
three
don't doubt it.
hours.
Hmm.
But as soon as we got here, it got a little bit better. So, in any case, that's
Yeah, at least
unusual
it's
for
not pouring
Illinois.
right now.
Yeah, I could make an Illinois joke right now, but
Oh my goodness.
I got too many people from Illinois standing around me. They'd probably start throwing watermelon at me or
Yeah.
something.
Boo. Boo.
You Wisconsin people are so arrogant with your beautiful state. Whatever. Yeah. So how
Yeah.
about you? What are you up to?
Yeah.
You're
I,
filming from where are you at right now?
I'm on location at home.
Oh, nice. How beautiful. I love that trunk in the background.
Thank you. I know it's
Yeah.
cool.
Does it
It's
have
mine.
some
It's got art
history?
supplies in it.
It's got what?
Art supplies.
Art supplies. Nice.
Yes.
As we all know, Angelica does a beautiful job. If you didn't pick up your July happenings, what do we call that piece anyway?
Newsletter.
The July newsletter.
Mhm.
She does that whole thing and it's got some beautiful graphic design in there.
This
So
month it's
good
really fun.
job.
It's got fireworks and everything. It's very fun.
Fireworks? You mean the fireworks that aren't?
Oh, I know.
What,
Yeah,
what
I
what's going
just
on? Angelica was just telling me that that
Mhm.
fire on the river is canceled.
Yeah, so there's like a bunch there's a where always floods really, right next to where Vintage is now, but it's completely flooded and of course the water's too high to actually be on the river for like shooting off fireworks and everything. So the flooding and then the high river together, it just makes it impossible for
And
that
so
to happen.
there's no stage, there's no music, there's
There
nothing
wouldn't be anywhere for them to
happening.
set up.
Well, we could all be in little rafts.
I mean, yeah, but that's very dangerous.
I
Everyone
had
would have to sign a waiver.
I had a family on Lake Wisconsin ask if we would be willing to actually have a beach service where people could pull up in boats and
That's
go to
fun.
church and do that like once a month.
Venice style.
What do you
That's
think?
really fun. I mean, I don't have a boat, but I mean, it sounds
Well,
fun.
we would be on shore. Wouldn't
Oh,
that'd be kind of cool? And then if people like something, they could blow their boat horn, and
that's interesting. I never thought of that.
then if they didn't like it, then they could spray us with
Drive
water or
away
something like that.
or boat away.
Yeah, yeah. Except
That's
there's this one little. Oh, never mind. I won't tell you what the one problem is.
It kind of makes me think of like early Christian day or like when people would come across the water to hear Jesus or he went out in the boat to let people hear him and they sat on shore.
Yeah,
Very
exactly.
early church vibe.
Yeah, we would just do the opposite. Oh, wait,
Mhm.
maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe we should do what you're talking about.
Yeah, right,
As
we
opposed
should
to
be
doing the
on the boat.
opposite of Jesus, we should be in line with Jesus.
Uh-huh, and let
That's the
people
whole
say
point,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not Christ deniers, we're Christ followers. Let's go. Let's do this,
Amen.
Verda. Come on. Maybe that's why we didn't do it. Anyway, anyway. So this last weekend we resumed where you left off after
Yeah.
the church at Ephesus. We jumped into Revelation chapter 2, 8 through 11. If you haven't checked out that message yet, it's the church at Smyrna. And yeah, so what kinds of things did you want to talk about the message this week?
I I think the theme Smyrna that I caught was "Don't let your fear have the last word," AKA "Do not be afraid," which I also think is interesting that that's always how, like, angels or messengers from God introduce themselves. These, like, really crazy spiritual experiences are always, uh, kind of punctuated with, like, "Do not be afraid," and something, you're going to hear something that's, like, amazing.
Right, right.
Um,
So, you know
so
what was interesting about that, and I never even made the point. So I think you mentioned that at the beginning of these letters, there is a description of Jesus, like
mhm,
in Smyrna, it's I am the first and the last.
mhm.
Uh, and if you look back to chapter one, there's this long vision of Jesus, and it has all of these descriptors of him. One of them is I am the first and the last. So just like Ephesus has one, Smyrna has one. It all harkens back to that. But the point that I would make was when you look at when he says I am the first and the last, the words right before that are do not be afraid. So
Mm,
in the what I think John wants the reader to identify as, oh, I remember that name, and it's the I do not be afraid name.
yeah,
But then Jesus repeats that in this letter to, or postcard, as I was calling it, postcard to the church at Smyrna. So yeah,
yeah,
you're right. It's this do not be afraid because they were going through it, right?
yeah, like, really going through it,
Hmm.
and even on that note, like, we you gave a I liked the illustration of, like, which kind of, like, hits different to you? Is it when somebody who you know has gone through it gives you encouragement, or someone who, like, has their life neat and tidy and tied up with a bow tells you something, and then it can kinda feel like, "Man, you don't even know what you're talking about, like,
Right,
thanks for the advice." But
right,
then I was talking to someone who was sitting next to me, and they were like, "I don't know, I kind of feel like if it's said in good if they have, like, a good heart behind it, even if their life is tied
sure.
up nicely with a bow, it matters." And I was like, "Yeah, that's true. It's true." I still think that, like, I think I think what made it important for this church and the fact that John was writing it to them, however, was because he could empathize with them in a way that was, like, really close to their circumstances.
Right,
So I think we have to have both. You know, you it's nice to have either type of person
sure,
offering encouragement, but
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but when I first started out in ministry, so I'm 20. Well, when I first started out in ministry, I was 21, and but by the time I'm 24 or so, and I'm actually the lead pastor at a church, I'm not going to do. I wasn't about to do a family series. I had people sitting out in front of me. I had no kids at the time, right? So I have zero experience. And I'm not going to stand there in the pulpit and tell these people who have 6 kids how they should be raising their kids. I mean, what do
Mhm.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I could have read a book by James Dobson, and talked about whatever Dr. Dobson had to say about the strong-willed child. But until you actually have a strong-willed, were you a strong-willed child, by the way, Angelica?
Mm, jury's out.
I'm pretty sure you were, but in any case, you know, you know, does it matter what the person's saying? But if if people know that you have a kid who's really put you to the test, and you talk about that, even if you weren't successful, whatever that means in raising that child, because right now the kid's a little bit wild, and that's the way of most kids. um, I don't know. I want to hear from that person who's in the thick of it, who's dealing with it, who said, I've tried this. It doesn't work for everybody. I have a friend for whom it did work, and whatever. But in any case, yeah, John definitely was going through it,
Mhm,
and he was facing the possibility of death. John was the only one of the apostles, by the way, who did not die a violent death.
mhm.
So, interestingly enough, he was exiled on the island of Patmos, but he did not die a violent death. So, anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
I went and I stole that whole thing from you.
No,
Go
no,
go
no,
go,
no.
go back to what you were saying.
No, that was it was great. I mean, it's interesting. He didn't get that end for himself, but he did take on, like, such an enormous amount of responsibility throughout his entire life. That was, like right, but he did write Revelation, and he did get exiled, and he did have all of these repeated, like, charges against his life that it's like, I mean, I feel like even if he had a violent death, it would have been, like I don't wanna say nothing to him, but, like, he was so like, he was just so set at that point.
Right.
It was like,
Right.
this whatever could happen to me, I honestly don't care, like, I understand where I am, like, my place in the world and, like, what God has, like, set ahead of me, that whatever death it is doesn't matter type thing.
Right. I'm
Anyway,
I'm living for Jesus. I'm going to die for Jesus one
yeah,
way or
like
another. And
yeah,
so whatever.
like, whatever, man. Like, he's like,
Yeah.
"You don't scare me."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, "You don't scare me," right? Like, what he's saying to Smyrna, right? He's like or he's yeah, offering himself as, like, this example, you don't have to be afraid. Um, yeah, what I really where is it at? I'm looking at my notes right now.
Yeah.
What I
While you're looking, I'll just mention, back in the book of Acts, when you see the apostles dragged into court, and they say, whether it's God or you that we're going to obey, it's not a question for us. We're going to obey God.
Mhm,
And and you look at that boldness of the
mhm,
early apostles, of Peter in particular, and and you realize that, like you said, they're they are so laser focused on living their life for Christ, even if that means dying for Christ. It's of no
totally,
matter, because they know in whose hands their lives rest.
totally.
And I think the condition of the contemporary world is we don't know that. We have a tendency to evaluate ourselves in terms of friendships,
Mhm,
or what we own, or what we don't own, or how much money we have, or how much money we don't have. And there are all these external criteria, but for the Christ follower, it's what is our relationship with Christ,
mhm,
and that's what makes the difference for them.
mhm. Yeah, so true. It's like they yeah, like, at that moment, they just gave it up and walked with him from that moment on, and when he called them, they just went, and they kept that same energy for the rest of the time that they
Yeah,
walked, which is wild.
yeah,
Um, yeah, what I li are "You are rich, you are faithful, you are true." Yeah, the idea, like so the church at Smyrna was in this place that was right on the coast. It was rivaling the church at like, the place of Ephesus, and the fact that they would have been also very prosperous.
yeah.
But they're in this place, but it says, like, the people there like, "You're poor," it calls them poor, yet they're rich. It was just such an interesting, like it's like it's like, imagine you're, like, living in a bank, but you don't have any money. You know what
Right,
I'm saying? Like, it's
right.
like that. It's like you're living in the center of, like, this place that has so much opportunity and so much currency, and you get none of it. But instead, you're being told you are rich. Like, it would I feel like that's such a big hurdle to think about, even though it's in such a short little verse, but it's such a hurdle to think you're surrounded by wealthy, prosperous people.
Yeah,
You're not that, but you're being told that you should be happy, like, joyful anyway because you have, better riches. Like, how are they, like, getting over the fact that he's not telling them you're gonna get rich too. He
right.
doesn't say that you're gonna be, you will rival them one day, you will have all the money you need. He's like, "You're
You
actually in for
are.
a reason."
Yeah,
Yeah, like,
yeah.
instead,
You are.
but yeah, so
Hmm.
I wanna talk more about that, like, that was so interesting to me, like,
Yeah,
I would feel kind of bummed. For a while, right? If you're sitting there and you're hoping this letter is coming, he's gonna give us, like, some good news. Like, we've been struggling.
Right.
It's been hard. He's gonna, like, come to us and say, like, "God is going to deliver you now." That's, like, the prosperity gospel, right?
Hmm.
We've been going through this really hard time, just keep holding on, keep praying, write down what you want, and it will happen. Like, I don't think so, bro.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Right.
You can't just manifest that into existence. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
And yet, while they're going through it, they are rich.
Yeah. That's the riches. That's
Yeah.
the riches.
You appear poor, or you might even feel yourself poor, but you are, in fact, rich.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been a good illustration to use for that. Like someone who maybe is going to inherit something. You think of all the different situations where um, you I was speaking with a guy in church who served in Vietnam. He wasn't in active duty during the war, but after the fact, he went in and informed people who were guerrilla fighting for the United States that the war was over.
Mhm.
So you might think of yourself as in this war, but be
Oh, that's
be
cool.
be aware you are we're now in a new state,
Yeah.
and so it feels this way, but here's true reality, right?
Mhm.
That the war is over and it's time to come home. So here I think Paul's doing that. You feel all the external circumstances say that you're poor, but here is your reality. You are rich. Look at everything that you have in Christ.
Mhm.
Remember, he started the book with grace and peace. And if you look at what you have in terms of not having to worry about those external circumstances,
Yeah.
you're in fact rich. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much here, isn't there?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's like a total mindset shift, I feel like.
Yes, we keep
Especially
coming back
since
to that. Yeah.
yeah, because they would have grown up there, right? All
Yeah.
those people who are there, you're growing up with the idea that of what success is. Probably similar to us growing up in, like, a prosperous country. There's an
Yeah.
idea of what success is, and you know that. So in a part of yourself, you were probably wondering, and then to have this be told to you, and you're starting to, like, change your approach and change your thinking, when you get to that point where you understand, "Oh my gosh, like, I've been rich all along, I've been victorious all along,"
Right.
and then you can get to that place like that the apostles were at, where they're like, "My life, like, is Christ,"
Right.
"To live is Christ, to die is gain." Like, you get to the point where you're actually, like, living in that way. It's not just like an act at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, cool stuff.
And really, that's this letter to Smyrna sets up all seven of them, but to Smyrna sets up the theme for the rest of the book. And so
Mhm,
many people when they come to the book of Revelation, they get past chapter 3, and suddenly there's this interpretive shift, which I think is a
mhm.
mistake. That is, well, chapters 1, 2, and 3 are written for the people then, but 4 through 22 is written for us now, and we're supposed to be looking for these signs. And no, dude, it's this whole thing is about encouraging people who are going through it,
Yeah,
and uh, but it shifts genre really at at chapter 4, and we have to keep that in mind to remember what he's saying in chapters 2 and 3, and then use that as we look at chapter 4 through the rest of the book. So
totally.
um, this idea of hope and perseverance. But I think at both services I mentioned this Greek word thlipsis, which the contemporary versions refer to as suffering, but the older versions translate as tribulation. And we have this idea that God's going to remove us from tribulation in our life,
Mhm,
but that's not what he's saying at all. He's saying,
mm-mm.
I am going to be there with you through this tribulation. You are rich because I am there with you through
Yeah.
this tribulation.
And,
So
like, speaking yeah, those themes are so important, there's so many. throughout the entire book of Revelation. And it's so beautiful because it does change. It changes like the type of narrative that it is.
Right.
Um, but you also talked about on Sunday there's like a tonal shift, and it's the first place that we start to this chapter and these verses are the first place that we see the accuser, where we see
Ah, yeah,
Satan.
yeah,
So it was like that's a shift
yeah,
right at the beginning that I think a lot of people don't think about because you've heard of him in the rest of the Bible, you know that he's there, the devil, like you
yeah.
have these images in your mind of like this red guy with the pointy tail. Not it though, right?
He has a ponytail?
Pointy.
Oh, I thought you said
Little
a
pointy tail,
ponytail. He might have a
little
ponytail too, but yeah, yeah.
he might. A goatee, a black
Right,
goatee.
right. Hey, if you think of it, come up with all these different images of Satan,
What
and
we've
we'll
seen.
we'll start putting those up on screen.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so perfect.
So after hearing the number of people say, "Hey, I'd like to go deeper in that," we're going to this Sunday go deeper into who Satan is, what's the role of Satan and the devil in our lifetime here and on Earth. Is it Jesus who's in charge? Is it Satan who's in charge? What's going on?
Mhm.
So we'll be looking at that
Yeah.
here this week.
'Cause that'll definitely it definitely sheds light on the rest of the book,
Right,
and it helps to understand the rest of what you're reading.
right,
'Cause if you go into it with, yeah, like, the hundreds of ideas of, like, who the devil is from society or from mythology or whatever, that's not the biblically accurate
right,
version, then it does get confusing.
right. It
You
does.
you can get some cool visuals out of it, sure, but it's not something that you should like, it's not a hill you should die on.
Yeah. And hey, if you want to get ready for that, go ahead and go on Amazon and get a copy of C.S. Lewis's The Screw Tape Letters.
Oh, yeah.
And he
Mhm.
really helps us to see kind of the ways of Satan in there.
We
It's
should have done a book, like a book club.
oh, there you go. Maybe we could do that.
That's such a cool book. That'd be
Yeah.
fun.
Hey, apparently the food's ready, and
Okay,
I got to go over and get some. And
okay.
speaking of food being ready, we're going to be out on Sunday
Oh, good
if the
segue.
weather's decent, and
Wow.
we're gonna have a church potluck. So go on. There's a place to sign up online now, right?
Yes, on the
Yeah.
app.
If you go on
Mhm.
the app, maybe the website too, I don't know.
Yes.
But if you go on the app, you can sign up for that. Even if you don't sign up, you can still come. I believe the church is providing brats. We're going to cook on the grill,
Mhm.
and there'll be good food. And we can hang out together, and
Bring something to share.
maybe you can throw a ball at a target and dump water on my head.
Oh,
That's just a thought.
alright.
Did
Micing up.
you see how excited she got by that? What is that about? Oh, really?
I'll be there.
All right. So that's going to be on Sunday after the second service. So let's call it 11 o'clock start time, and yeah, come and help. I think there's a place to sign up to help too. But
Yep.
yeah, if we get a few people or a lot of people, it's those of us who don't have any place to go over the 4th of July weekend, so
Mhm.
we can hang
And
out
now I know you
together.
don't because there's no fire on the river, so we'll
Yeah,
watch you.
really. So yeah, yeah. So
Just kidding.
thanks for being our eyes.
Alright.
So all right. Angelica,
Okay.
it's always great talking with you. Hey, everybody else, it's great just having this chat. And again, feel free to add some comments, questions, and we'd love to
Mhm.
interact with you. So
Yep.
have a great week. Hopefully, we see you on Sunday and have a safe 4th of July. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.